it's not, hey, Steve, why don't you stay down there and just do the bass player thing? No, it's like, come on up and do a harmony with us and be lead too. And it's, not a lot of bands can pull that off. What's up, guys? Welcome back to Lowen University. And this day, I'm excited to put the spotlight on, in my opinion, the godfather of heavy metal bass playing, Mr. Steve Harris. We're going to be covering Tame A Land from the 1983 record, Peace of Mind. Iron Maiden's just one of those bands that came before and paved the way and broke down all the walls for so many of today's greatest metal bands, and they still today are an amazing metal band. Steve has just such a presence in every Iron Maiden record, every song, every live show, and is just such a force to be reckoned with. So I'm excited to take a listen to this one today. It's a track I'm not extremely familiar with. I'll have to remember if I've heard it in years past, but let's jump in to Tame A Land from Iron Maiden. Doing the fifths in G, going back to B. Ooh, that is not in the key, but it adds a kind of a brooding, goes back dark here. That's kind of cool. Kind of neat little guitar lead. Something I always notice about Iron Maiden, it's like, who's playing lead? The answer is yes. It's so cool. Back to that out of key, kind of G sharp tonic there. So now we're kind of bringing it down to E. So already in this intro, there's so many little chords and notes that are kind of going from key to key. I wouldn't say they're like making a deliberate key change, but that's something I've always noticed about Iron Maiden. They will just do these like knee-jerk chords that are out of key, and it's always in a way to kind of build to something kind of dark and brooding. They touch on this kind of this major tonality, while we're clearly in B minor. Then when we go into this main verse, they're kind of doing it again. Let me jump back and see if I can catch that. It sounded like they were going from like G sharp down to F, then back to E minor, which don't belong in the, in the tonality of what they're doing at all. But it just gives it that quirky sense of building to something. It's always about the energy with Iron Maiden. Let me see if I can, yeah, right here. E and G. Yeah, so. And then the chord they go after that is back to E minor, which has an F sharp and a G. So it's all kind of interesting the way they do that. And this, a lot of bands don't write with theory in mind, and I don't think you should. I think you should write whatever sounds good to you. But it's interesting. They're kind of creating a lot of color without really these big, rich chords with thirds and minor thirds. They're just doing it with the root note. And Steve is driving this thing right off the bat. I mean, he's been playing nonstop for this first minute, and that's what I love about him. He just has the stamina of a lion on bass. And even at his age now, I think 65, 66, 67 years old, he can outplay all of us. He's insane. I just wish I had that kind of stamina. And that's what comes from doing this for like 50 years. Let's keep going. And in the kingdom of the sides of the time, tomorrow, he moves the silence and the firmament in the land amongst the stars of an age. Tomorrow, he is distinct to be a king. He rules over everything in the land. Gratitude, body water is your life. I always love the bass is so mixed out front, right there. There's that theme again. So he kind of stays in E minor here. Down to C, then A. All over the place. Bruce, killing it. As I was trying to say earlier, I don't know if it got through, but man, the way they mix the bass, it's like, hey, I'm the band leader, and that's the craziest cool thing about Iron Maiden. He is the band leader. He is credited for writing a lot of the songs, producing some of the records. I mean, yeah, just bass players leading the band. I'm here for it. This guy has used a Fender P bass, I think, since day one. It's like, I think, a utility. A lot of bass players, it's like, oh, well, these 10 years I was with this brand. Then I switched to this one. It's the next best thing. And I try to be cognizant of that as a bass player. I played Warwick for a while, and now I'm on Jackson, but this guy from day one, this is like, I know this is my axe, and, all these years later, here he is. And what's weird is when I first learned it was a P bass, it didn't sound like a P bass to me. He's really got it, tone wide open. I believe he plays Seymour Duncan pickup, so it's kind of a gnarly, punchier, mid-range kind of driving sound of a P bass. And again, the way they mix it, it's like, hey, we're up front. And like I said a second ago, who's playing lead right now? The answer is yes, we all are. And I love that you can have 3 guitars in a band, and the bass player is still kind of up front. It's kind of like, hey, us 3 guitar players are going to play this little lead thing up here. It's not, hey, Steve, why don't you stay down there and just do the bass player thing? No, it's like, come on up and do a harmony with us and be lead too. And it's, not a lot of bands can pull that off, if any. It's done so well, and this is such a driving, cool track so far. Let's keep going. Ooh, that sounded like a key change. Let me go back a little bit here. E minor. That was a key change right there. So now we're in like D minor. He just keeps going. Steve is like a freight train, just does not stop. Unbelievable to me. The time will come for him. So I have a lesson here on this YouTube channel. I'm going to put it in the link in the description, but it covers like how to do plucking patterns like that. The stamina, the different variations between the 2 fingers. And what's funny, one of my first lesson videos I ever posted on YouTube was about the 3-finger technique, and I quoted that Steve Harris used the 3-finger technique, and I have been the comment section on that just completely ruined the video. I took it down. Iron Maiden fans came out and corrected me, which blew my mind even more, because even playing this stuff with 3 fingers is impressive stamina wise, but he is doing it with just 2. That's what I'm told. I'm going to stick with that. We can argue in the comments if you want, but I am told he is doing this all with 2 fingers, and it just makes it even more amazing. But right here, he's kind of just doing a lot of raking. You can hear it, and it's a great way to kind of have these driving passages. So I'm leading with the index finger. You can lead with the middle finger. You can switch. Or like... And it takes a lot of stamina to do that. And again, we're 3 minutes into this song. This guy is driving every note fiercely. And this whole album is like that. And their entire live show is like that. 3 hours of doing this stuff. I mean, every intense technical band that plays way faster and way more notes than this, they've always thrown in some break or some ballad. Iron Maiden shows are just like C4 energy all the way through to the very end. And they replicate it exactly live the way it is on the records. It's intense. It's balls to the wall. That is why they are so respected. To lay claim his crown. we're still here in D. That's a great way to flip 4/4. We're still in 4/4. I'm not going to talk about, we're not doing some odd time signatures here, but it's a great way in rock songs to build. You get 3 + 3 + 2. Just nonstop, man. Just awesome. Golly. So he's back here, he's kind of changing the picking style. So before we're kind of doing like one note as the accent on top. Now he's going to just straight raking kind of back and forth. I mean, it is so overshadowed how much stamina this requires. And again, to do this on a live show where, the next song in the set is going to be probably faster and just as much playing from Steve as this one. His chops are so conditioned, like iron fingers, man. This stuff will wear you out. There's no stopping it. I mean, even if he had a rest with one bar, that would be enough to rejuvenate most people, but he hasn't stopped this entire time. Just driving it. And I'm not sure what his effects chain is like. It doesn't sound something utterly complicated to me. But what always blew me away about his tone is that, again, like I said a little while ago, he's been able to take this big, fat P-bass sound and kind of make it small and really focused in such a good way that cuts with all the density of the other guitars. Obviously, the drums, Nico's drums, big presence, toms for days. And there's a lot to cut through. Bruce's full range vocals. So he's managed to EQ his P-bass in a way that would normally really muddy a mix-up. Like if you just took a P-bass and plugged it in direct and then tried to play in a band like this, it would really get washed out. He's obviously got some drive or something, but he's managed to cut some of the lows. And I found that, you don't need as much bass as you think you do, EQ-wise on a record or live. A lot of it just, gets lost with the kick drums. It's a lot of wasted energy, wasted air. Trim some of the bass back if you're having a hard time cutting through. You don't need as much as you do, and his tone doesn't have much bass at all. It's really more mid-focused. That's why he's able to cut through, and you can hear every note so delicately. You can almost hear the finger scrapes, and it's very well done, and he's got it dialed in on every record like this. But yeah, 5 minutes in, he has not stopped playing. Just these two-finger rakes, it takes a lot of stamina. It's really impressive. Kind of going between two keys here. E minor, going down a whole step, back to D minor. Oh, that's cool. Rewind a second, show that. So he basically foreshadowed when the guitar comes in and starts copying the bass. Like, when does that ever happen? The bass player starts something and the guitar player does it second in a composition? No, the guitar player always does something. The bass player might join in later, but Steve, being the front runner, he started this motif back then. Now it's all joined up for a harmony. So it's a guitar solo. Now they join in here shortly. See, it's like, who's playing lead? Everybody. Ooh. Key change there. Back to D. That's interesting. Going up to like kind of F sharp major. I'm curious how he's plucking that, because then he would have to be barring that note. It doesn't sound hard, or maybe it does sound hard because it is hard, but going between D, D minor, E minor, and F sharp minor. So kind of just like paralleling, planing minor chords here, which it's, again, music theory wise, it doesn't really make a lot of sense, and it doesn't. Sometimes I say this in videos and people read into what I'm saying. This is done to build a vibe. It's dark, it's brooding, it's building to something, and that has been always a hallmark of Iron Maiden records. Just doesn't have to be the heaviest, but they have a way of making things very dark with the way they write, all in the notes they choose to go to in the context of what came before them, and that's kind of what's going on here. Almost has like a movie soundtrack kind of tonality. Ooh, I got that one right. E flat. Up a half step. Cool. Just all over the place. That's cool. Oh. Back to the intro. Ending the way we started. Magnificent piece. So wow, as always, Steve Harris, it's like hearing Iron Maiden the first time every time I hear Iron Maiden. They just paved the way. The OG heavy metal band that broke down so many barriers for bands like Metallica, the Big Four. Obviously, there's the new wave of British heavy metal movement. They had a huge hand in that. And it just never ceases to amaze me the way they can have so much going on, but it still sounds so tight, focused, and simple. And I think what the coolest thing about Iron Maiden is to me is that when I listen to any of their songs, I hear little glimpses of other newer bands in there. And you can just tell how much this band has imprinted, whether they know it or not, on newer, more modern bands. Everything from the drum fills, the toms, the phrasing of the bass licks, the phrasing of the leads, the way the bass and the guitar can meld together. You can go listen to everybody from Dream Theater to Tool to even newer, really heavy bands, Pantera. There is an influence in there that always harkens back to these early Iron Maiden records, and it's very clear if you listen for it. And it just shows you the magnitude of this band and what, the legacy they leave on the rock and heavy metal world. So hats off to Iron Maiden. Incredible legacy. And what's even more incredible is they are still out there today with the same tenacity and ferocity at their live shows than ever before. And I don't know when they'll stop. They still have it in them. It's crazy. But yes, love this track, love this record, and Can't wait to do more on Maiden soon. Thank you so much for watching. Give this video a thumbs up. Just hit that like. Drop me a comment on what you'd like to see. My list is really growing, and I want to thank you guys so much for putting all of your suggestions out there. I'm trying to read every single one and try to be organized and make a list, and I'm going to have to start doing more of these each week because it's simply piling up. I mean, a couple months now worth of stuff to do. But make sure you're subscribed, and I will see you next week. Cheers.